Right, I'm going to have to...
So we're live now, Chairman.
Good evening and welcome to this meeting of West Craven Area Committee, part of Pendle Council. Before we get started properly, I'm just going to ask people to introduce themselves and for any apologies to be recorded. My name is David Whip and I am a councillor, Pendle councillor for part of Barnoldswick, and I chair the area committee. Now I'm going to take people in the order that they are on my screen, which may or may not make sense to people, but if I could go to Neil Watson.
Good evening, I'm Neil Watson. I'm representing the council as a planning officer tonight.
Thank you. David Walker.
Good evening, Environment Services Manager David Walker, Area Coordinator for West Craven Committee.
Jane Mills.
Yes, good evening, everyone. Barnoldswick councillor, Pendleborough councillor.
Thank you. Can I just remind people to put themselves on mute if they are not speaking? This is good practice, good training for doing that. So, Tom.
Hi, I'm Councillor Tom Whip for Courtsward in Barnoldswick.
Ken.
Hi, I'm Ken Hartley and Councillor for Craven Ward, Barnoldswick.
Colin.
Colin Carter, Councillor Eby Ward.
Marjorie.
Marjorie Adams, Courtsward, Pendle councillor.
Stephen.
Hi, good evening. My name's Stephen Murphy. I'm a police officer based in Combe, but working out of Barnoldswick and covering West Craven.
Mike.
Yes, good evening, everybody. I'm Eby Ward Councillor for Pendleborough.
Now, I've got a series of icons on the bottom, and I'm not clever enough to work out who they are, but I've got Christine, who is masquerading as somebody called Governor, but I think she thinks she's on one of those TV programmes. So, Christine, if you unmute yourself, Christine, and then...
Are they unmuted now?
You are.
Oh gosh, sorry. Christine Pollard, Salford Parish Council.
Thank you. And live stream is just our meetings Pendle. No, and we've got Jane already. So, Joanne, could I ask you just to say about any apologies that we might have?
Yeah, we've had apologies from Peter Hampson, Co-optee, and Councillor Rosemary Carroll.
Thank you. And to be clear, do we have any requests to speak from members of the public?
No, we don't, not this evening.
Okay. In that case, I'm about to move on to the agenda. Before I do so, just to say that it is a formal meeting of Pendle Council. We have to abide by certain rules. If we take a vote on issues where there's a difference of opinion between councillors rather than a consensus, I will take a roll call of attendees and ask for people's voting for or against. Members of the committee who are co-opted, such as Christine from Salford Parish Council, can take full part in the meeting, but she's not able to vote. So when it comes to voting, Christine will be silent. It's not often that Christine is silent, so that's always a plus point, isn't it? But just a final reminder to people, if you can put yourself on mute if you are not called to speak. So I've got Governor Pollard and Jane Mills, you are both unmuted at the moment. If you can just mute yourself, please. And Councillor Tom Whip, you're not muted either. Right, that's told him, hasn't it? Okay, get into the agenda proper. We have got some interesting items. We've got some boring items. We've got some items at the end which we have to exclude press and public from. Because of the nature of the business, but we're a long way off that yet. Item 1 is a boring bit, and it's declarations of interest. And this is where any councillors have to declare any prejudicial pecuniary interests, can't say that, prejudicial pecuniary interests of any items that are on the agenda tonight. Are there any, please? Speak now or ever hold your peace. Jane, can you unmute yourself for a start?
Yeah, I've just done that. Thank you, Chairman. I have an interest in an item on the agenda, which is item 10, regarding some parking problems in the Richmond Road area.
Okay.
It's not.
Is it a financial interest?
It's not, no.
Okay, well, it is not a prejudicial pecuniary interest and you are at liberty to speak, but thank you for declaring your personal interest in that one. Any further declarations of interest? I've got Ken Hartley showing, if you can put your hands down once you've spoken, please. Ken?
Thank you, Chairman. It's the same interest as Jane, since the area under consideration lies between our two properties.
Okay, it's not a financial interest.
Not a financial interest, no.
Thank you very much. Right, item 2 is public question time. As we have no members of the public with us here, and I don't think we've got any facility for members of the public to put the questions into live chat on YouTube, which is regrettable, then we probably don't have any questions. But I've got Councillor Tom Whip. Tom?
Hi. I would like to express my dismay that the live chat isn't available. I thought we had requested that at the last meeting. And it is a way that members of the public could ask questions during this time, and I think it would be a valuable thing to have for future meetings.
Thank you. I agree with you wholeheartedly, not least because you'll kick my legs if I didn't. We're going to move on, though, to item 3, which is the minutes of the last meeting. Could I see somebody move those as a correct record, please? I can see a couple of people indicating that they feel that it's a correct record. We could put this up on the screen, but we're not going to, so I'll just do that. Is there anybody that thinks there are any errors in the minutes and you're prepared to accept the wrath of Joanne? Because there was one item where I was unhappy. And it was to do with, what was it to do with, Joanne?
I'm not sure, David.
Was it this meeting or was it another meeting?
Might have been another meeting.
Oh, yes, it's on the capital programme. And it's the resolution 2 on page 3, which relates to that, and it says that, comma, subject to agreement by the financial services manager, the following allocations be made from the Barnoldswick allocation of the 2020-21 capital programme. We in the committee did not include the words subject to agreement by the financial services manager. We said, as councillors who have control of these matters, that the following allocations be made from the Barnoldswick allocation of the etc, etc, etc. So I would move the minutes with the deletion of that phrase in commas there. So we are moving acceptance of the minutes with the deletion of subject to agreement by the financial services manager. Would somebody second me on that, please? Thank you very much, Councillor Tom Whip. The minutes as amended have been moved and seconded. Is there a consensus in agreement with those? If you nod your heads, that'll do. Yeah, thank you very much. I notice, Governor Pollard, you are not nodding your head, and that's well done. So the minutes have been moved with that amendment, and if Joanne can refer that to the director, I would be most grateful. Thank you. Right, we're moving on to police and community safety issues, which I'm sure Stephen is going to be absolutely delighted with. Stephen, do you want to make some introductory remarks about the sort of crime levels and what's going on, and generally the sort of issues that are particularly relevant from your perspective as a police officer and representing the constabulary, please?
Yeah, I can do. I'm assuming the monthly crime statistics have already been issued to all councillors in the meeting, so everyone's got a copy of that. Is that right?
We had those emailed round. I to be honest, I haven't got those in front of me. I can get them up on screen, but would somebody else be able to put them up on screen?
Not through them, but I'll just make general observations and answer your question if you prefer.
Thank you. They're up on screen now.
So, from the figures that we can see, there's very little difference across August this year to August last year in terms of the incident types. In fact, the overall crime for the 4 areas for the 3 areas now is down by eight offences. The big difference being there, I think you'll see, is the plus 33 of antisocial behaviour, which is actually up on most areas significantly in Earby. I have done a little bit of background research into this, and obviously from policing it throughout the summer as well. Police don't get any time off for the COVID. A lot of this antisocial is coming from nuisance calls, where the generator's been, where gatherings have been witnessed by members of the community and reported them to the police. Generally, these fall under the classifications of groups of youths or otherwise in properties, having house parties, which you would expect in the summer anyway. However, I think these have been exaggerated due to COVID and people wanting the police to know due to the risks involved, quite rightly. So we have attended a lot more incidents, and there's been a lot more calls in terms of these kind of gatherings of 20 or so people. So I think that's the big driver that was in there in August. I didn't have time to check the previous months, and I appreciate possibly the police haven't been here for the last few months. But I'm going to assume that has been up on a month-by-month basis because work in the area, I'm aware of the number of calls that enabled we've been receiving, and that's also reflected on our section patrols as well, especially over some of the larger events which have gone on, such as Eid, etc.
Okay, thank you very much. So first of all, can I ask if any members have any questions about the crime figures, the issues that Stephen has just pointed out? I've got Mike Goulthorpe.
Chair, I'll just unmute myself. Evening, Stephen. I'm glad to see you here, or there, to be more appropriate. And I understand fully what you said there. However, we have a core issue of youth in Earby, over and above the gatherings that take place, that are creating a bit of havoc across the whole of Earby, usually around the playground areas, where they're being mischievous, to say the least, and they've been hanging around clearly for the last 3 months. We've 1 or 2 additions coming in from Colne and Barnoldswick, parents dropping off to meet the kids, to meet their friends. Hopefully that'll subside, but it is a problem for some residents. Certainly we've had some distress calls from them, where these there's about 6 or 8 of them that are causing this. So it is something we need to try and get to grips with. And you're right, I mean, the figures are double. But we had, I think, 1 month where they were slightly down, but antisocial behaviour across West Craven as a whole has been very, very bad indeed for the last 3 months. Maybe some of the school going back to school will get rid of some of it. But you're right, there are the allotment parties taking place and all of that sort of thing. but there is a core of what I would call delinquent use, if that's still in fashion. I don't know whether it is or not, that are causing problems, particularly as they move around key parts of Earby, and that's going to continue, I'm afraid, until something's done about it. They have been moved on by our community police, but they still are causing a problem, and we're getting phone calls very often on this one, and we keep saying, look, report it, and do that. But it is a worrying thing, and it's not getting any better. So the more we see you constables, the better it's going to be, because that's what we need, really. I understand your priorities. Thank you.
I think it's important to point out at this point that Stephen is the only constable that we have.
Yeah.
That although the local policing team, the neighbourhood team, has increased by 50% in the last couple of weeks, that's only brought the sum total of officers up to 3. There's Stephen as the local police officer, constable, and we have 2 PCSOs now, Neil Waddin and Kevin Dolphin. So despite that massive increase in resources of 50%, the thin blue line is ever so slight, and I think we find that very regrettable. My belief, it's not necessarily enforcement that is needed, but some provision, youth service provision, and that given the circumstances of the last 6 months, I think a lot of kids have gone wild, and it doesn't take that many. I mean, I say wolves, but it doesn't take many people who are determined to set a bad example and lead a lot of sheep down the wrong road. If I'm not mixing my metaphors too much, can I ask if there's any further questions or comments on the numbers?
Can I just comment, David?
Yeah.
On just what's been said, because I mean, you're quite right. We have now got Kevin Dolphin, who's a PCSO, who's replaced Mark Hyde. From when I started 2 years ago, Mark Hyde quickly left the police. He covered something to be said for that, possibly. But he covered Earby, and Neil was always historically Barn Oldswick, and he's got a good repertoire with contacts and has a good rapport with the people. During the time that I've been here, me and Neil have worked on the same time team to try and make our presence more police worthy. There's been a change with the introduction of Kevin. Not only has he come in, me, Neil and Kevin now are all on totally different time teams. So effectively, where we may have had police for 40 hours of a week across West Craven, potentially we have 120 hours. So it's more than 50% visibility. Obviously, there are holidays and things involved in that. But we've also had an increase in PCSOs in Colne, which allows them to extend their patrols into areas where David will know I've been begging for resources myself to try and encourage both the PCSOs and CBMs from Colne into West Craven, and also, more importantly, the task force for the more serious incidents. We haven't seen much of either, if I'm honest, for several months, but that now may come into effect as well. So let's fingers crossed on that we do see some more visibility. People's reassurance in our visibility is what counts, and may drive these youths and stop their behaviour a little bit.
Thank you very much. I've got Ken Hartley indicating. Is this on the numbers, Ken?
Sort of on the numbers. It touches on the numbers. The question is a relatively simple one. What kind of proportion of time is being absorbed by COVID code breakers, for want of a better phrase, i.e. illegal raves and overcrowded pubs and the rest of it?
I think in answer to that, Ken, in relation to West Craven, I'm gonna say I've been very, very impressed with the majority of people, and not only the majority, the vast majority of people. I know there have been very serious issues in Nelson, more issues in Briarfield, and to an extent in Combe along those lines. But I don't think until recently, with the opening of the pubs and things, that we've seen that kind of response from people in our area. I certainly haven't witnessed it anyway. Hands up. I think the majority of people have been very, very good.
Okay, well, I can report that the only licensed premise that had received an improvement notice is in Barnoldswick, and that has followed, I think, 2 visits or perhaps more visits, I don't know, over recent weeks. So, I mean, the more serious issue in terms of infection rates for COVID-19 is in Nelson and Briarfield, but you don't have to drive past many pubs to see that the standards aren't as good as people would wish. I'm not tarring everybody with the same brush. I can highly recommend the Greyhound, where Tracy rules with a rod of iron and people feel very safe that they can go over there for a pint. Can I move on to issues? I'm just going to put...
Sorry, Councillor Carter had raised a hand to speak, I think.
Sorry, it isn't raised now. Colin, on the figures.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Yeah, just on the figures there, I'm just wondering, would it be possible to recruit some more special constables, perhaps?
Okay, I don't think that's really on the figures. No. I know that is an issue that is discussed by the higher echelons of the constabulary to mixed effect, and it is problematic in that people become specials as a stepping stone to be recruited into the regulars, and so people go in but they come out again, and similarly with PCSOs, where that's used as a stepping stone to a career in the constabulary as well. So it is something, and it's worthwhile doing, and I would encourage people to do it. It's not as straightforward as perhaps you and I would have hoped. I'm going to move on now because we're going to discuss issues of community safety. And first of all, I'm just going to share this image. I'm sure people can see that now, which is of the pavilion at Victory Park. And I think Councillor Tom Whip wants to speak to this one, so I'll bring Councillor Tom Whip in.
Thank you, Chair. The issue we're having at Victory Park is it's the same as always, really. The antisocial behaviour associated with cars coming into the park, sort of gangs of youths in that fashion, as well as we've received some damage to the skate park. There seems to be a group of youths that think that they'll get attention if they break stuff, and through that we'll give them new equipment. Sorry, but that's not the way it works. Yeah, it's the general periphery there. It's just non-stop.
And I think the thing that I would add is the open consumption of illicit substances or nitrous oxide, and indeed many reports of dealing. And I don't like advertising the fact, but that's the case. So we did have, I think it was Inspector Boast, or perhaps it was Chief Inspector Cartwright, saying that there ought to be a plan in place to deal with this. I'm not aware whether there is a plan in place, but it's quite clear to all of us that the problems of that nighttime use are multiplying, and they really do need addressing, and we set some firm boundaries and don't allow people to step outside it. Is there anybody else wants to contribute to this? I'm going to take that one down now so that I can actually see who's indicating. So I've got Jane Mills.
Thank you, Chairman. Just on that, for months and months now, we've had ongoing issues in all of the parks, really, round and about, mainly in the ones more local to town. People are saying that, they're taking the little ones down there to play on the swings, they're finding these canisters, it's appalling. We've had such a, a reasonable summer that, we would like people to go out and to enjoy these parks safely as much as we can do that. And we've been reporting this time after time after time, and we just do not seem to be getting anywhere with it. And it's something that it's a big part of the town and people's leisure time. So, if there's something we can drive towards to try and, get this antisocial behaviour down, even if we're looking at CCTV and things like that, but we need a bit of help with it, back up from you guys, if that's at all possible. Thanks.
Yes, thank you, Jane. Can I just mention problems at Letcliffe and Valley Gardens as well? And perhaps bring Stephen back in now just to respond. And I think as far as EAB is concerned, we're looking at problems at the waterfalls, at the wreck as well. So, it's a general problem, and we could do with a plan of action. So, Stephen, if you could just tell the committee your thoughts on that and how we could get that forward. I have got an important call, so I'm trying to take this call at the same time.
Yeah, I think we would be following suit from what has happened in Colne, where Inspector Boast has issued warnings over social media and allowed extra police powers when these things had basically taken over. But it always comes down to the numbers. And I know the councillors here in the group do receive direct information complaints, and obviously there's always social media where this is broadcast. But we have to reiterate, if these calls are not coming through the 101, however painful that is for people, it really makes us hard to justify putting resources into problems. That the resources will always go where the calls dictate, and that's, I know it's a vicious circle, but until the complaints come in, we can't respond. And it has happened in Colne, down at Cotton Tree. The public order notice was put in, and that's because enough people complained over a period of a couple of weeks.
Yeah, thank you very much for that, Stephen. What I would urge any members of the public, and indeed members of the committee, is first of all to report things as you see them, either by going on phoning 101 or doing it online, which may be quicker from time to time. In addition to that, people can sign up to Lancashire Talking, and that gives you an opportunity to take part in a survey of where you think the hotspots for various issues are, and that then sort of brings you into a virtuous circle of being able to update the police on issues of concern as well. So, there's perhaps two things there that any member of the public can do quite easily. And as Stephen says, it is very important that people do report. And, as far as that is concerned, it is the more the merrier. Don't think somebody else has done it, and don't think because you put it onto Facebook that it's registered with the police, because it won't have done. Now, I've got Stephen, you've got your hand raised again. I think you wanted to come back in, and then I've got Mike Goulthorpe.
Yeah, it's a very good point that you bring up about Lancashire Talking. We obviously all attended the meeting at the ACE Centre earlier on this year, and a large impetus from our headquarters at Lancashire Police was put on that. Unfortunately, with the COVID, and especially the numbers rising in Pendle, the majority of the effort from the police has been put into Clitheroe areas. But as it becomes safe, the police will be actively trying to seek out new members of Lancashire Talking. Anyone who's listening to this, I encourage you to take a look, because it is a strong voice which will help you from your local community to direct your police resources exactly on the issues that you feel are important.
I've got Mike. Is it on this topic, Mike? Because I've got another issue that I'm going to introduce.
Just briefly, Chairman, it is about the topic. I think there's two aspects here. One is behaviour, which you see and note at the time, and it moves on. And there's a lot of bad behaviour going on at the moment. For instance, Stephen, I was driving back past into Abbey, and as I drove past, one youth was politely spitting and gobbing in the postbox. Thought it was great, you know. Now that is a difficult one. I nearly stopped. By the time I got there, I thought, well, you know, what am I going to do with this one? The other one is, you're quite right, is reporting the issues like the constant damage going on at the wreck, which happens on a cyclical basis and has been going on now for several years. And it does get reported. We're aware of that. But yes, we've got to get this message across and getting it to everybody that going on the Facebook ain't the answer. We've got to get it reported. But it is two distinct things. One is behaviour, which you lucky if you pass it and you see it. Whether you're walking down the high street and there's two youths coughing in old people's faces, for instance, which has happened in Abbey, or actual damage that you see usually after the event. You know, it's usually done at night and so on. And we get it at the waterfalls, as David says, and at the wreck. So there are two things here, and you know, I think we perhaps need to combine some effort into trying to stop it escalating any further. But thanks for that anyway.
Okay, thank you. I'm going to move on to the next issue that I have, and I'm just looking for the picture now, which seems to have disappeared. Thank you very much, you marvellous machine. And I'm not sure why it isn't coming up. But it's a picture of the car overtaking on a bend coming down Manchester Road after driving dangerously right over the tops, and it is something that Stephen's aware of. I'll try and get the picture up whilst we're discussing it, but Stephen, I did give you a warning that we would be talking about this. We've got several road safety items later on the agenda. If you feel you can contribute at all to that more general discussion, I can bring that item forward whilst you're still with us. But if you could just like to touch on the Manchester Road incident and what's happened there, and whether there's any possibility of taking this further, please.
Yeah, from what I understand, and I may be wrong, the log that I've read is a little bit confusing, but this incident seemed to have started in Barrow Ford heading towards Barnoldswick. So the incident belongs to another area. From what I understand, after the report was received, though, the actual driver of that vehicle was pulled over by our tactical operations team. He was spoken to, he was breathalyzed, he was swiped for drugs, and he came back sober. Now, I wasn't there, so obviously I can't comment on the actions of the officers involved. They're very highly trained officers, and excellent drivers and standard of driving. They've spoken to this male and given him what they've reported as words of advice. This has obviously done a full loop, and it's gone back through Sergeant Tim Hitchin, who's coming after the event. He's now, today, I've contacted the original complainant and asked him whether or not he had the incident captured on CCTV rather than just the pictures that we've seen. There is no CCTV, which would obviously, in the old words, paint 1,000 words, but he has stated he is prepared to help police. So this was allocated to be dealt with tonight, actually, by a police officer who's on office bound duties here at Colne. unfortunately, the male who's reported, his wife is 2 days overdue from giving birth. So they have other priorities at the moment. So in answer to your question, that it's still pending, and we will see whether or not we do get a complaint that this male would be prepared to take to court, and then of course the driver could be prosecuted. I can only, that's all I can tell you. That's the facts as it is. He was sober. Words of advice, and now we're in discussion with the original complainant to see what he saw.
Thank you. If I'd have been able to show you the pictures, there's three pictures which show what happened, and I mean it's pretty damning in the sequence that they are. I don't know whether you've seen those, Stephen. That brings me on to the wider issue of several. I won't say that they're all young people, young adults perhaps, razzing around in various vehicles which have been named. Well, the individuals have been named, and the vehicles have been identified and registration numbers taken. And they are typically sort of little vehicles. I won't mention any makes. But they are driving dangerously throughout West Craven, and they are a danger to themselves, a danger to others. I'm sure, Stephen, that you are aware of some of the people who I'm referring to by name. What, if anything's been done about those?
Yeah, I'm totally aware. And I think, as you know, David, our sergeant agent has been off for several months this year. Came back last month, and he's very traffic orientated, being an ex-traffic officer himself. I actually was out in Abbey last night in a plain vehicle looking for the particular black Renault, is one of the named ones. And I did find the black Renault. Unfortunately, in this instance, he wasn't driving in any manner. We know where these people live, and if people want to come forward to the police rather than just using Facebook, we can deal with it.
Yeah, I think people are reporting, but inevitably there's a lag between when they see things and when they get through on 101 and which time it's the event has passed. But I mean, people have identified particular vehicles. They've got the index numbers, so there ought to be enough there to go on. And would that be the case?
No, that on the legislation, it needs to be witnessed by a police officer unless we're prosecuting under Section 59 and things like that, where we're going to seize the vehicle. We need to be witnessed by a constable. If there are incidents of dangerous driving, and CCTV dash cam is usually the way we'll go forward. It's very difficult statement because people are caught up in the moment and forget. But yes, we have a number of vehicles, and I also believe the TAC Ops team that we mentioned that were in the area stopping this vehicle last week are also in the area looking for these vehicles as well. So they weren't here by chance, shall we say. We're aware. The problem with the police, not everybody is trained to pursue. As soon as a vehicle fails to stop, we have to stop if we're not trained. But the tactical operations, they are pursuit trained, and they're the kind of police officers we need in the area to deal with these drivers, because they ain't going to stop for us.
Thank you very much. I've not seen anybody else indicating they want to speak, and nobody's doing so now. So, Stephen, can I thank you ever so much for coming along. If you want to stop for the general road safety discussions, you just shake your head if you would rather not. I can see
I'm happy to stay. I appreciate we've been absent for so long.
Okay.
If anyone thinks of anything else, I'm happy to.
Okay. Well, no, I mean, the very specific issues in terms of road safety. So that's in item 10, the third bullet point down. So I'm going to close the police item and the community safety issues. We're going to reaffirm our request for the adequate policing of parks, flag up the issue of boy races and those issues that we've covered in the meeting, the drugs, open drugs consumption and the like. And then with the agreement of the committee, if I take item 10, the third bullet point down, these are road safety at specific locations. So the ones that we've got listed, there are 2 specific locations along the A56, both at Kelbrook and Skipton Road, Earby. Now, I do have some pictures, but given the difficulties getting the last ones up, I might just struggle to do this. We were rather diverted from preparing for the meeting by the County Council announcing that they were going to, they'd submitted a bid for combined authorities, so we didn't quite get as far along. So if we start in Earby, on Skipton Road in Earby, and I'm just looking for the specific picture that illustrates this, but we've had a whole host of complaints from residents in the Lane Ends area, from Victoria Road Junction, New Road Junction, through beyond to School Lane, and we did have a crash where a vehicle overturned on a relatively slow stretch of road. Very great concern from residents, and as a committee, together with the other items, I'd like us to send this to the County Council, to the Traffic Liaison Committee, to ask that they consider any measures that can be taken. But if I can first of all invite Stephen just to make any comments on that particular stretch of road through Earby, coming, to the foot of Wiswick.
Yeah, well, we also have some of our officers who live on that stretch of road as well, and they've reported it as well. It does tend to be at all times of the day. It makes it very difficult. Obviously, not when the speed patrols are there, because people tend to warn everybody that that's going on, either on social media or by the flashing of the headlights. But the incident on School Lane, I don't know if you can put that down to anything than a pure accident. But yes, generally, I think at the moment we are having incidents of increased speed, increased juvenile behaviour in vehicles, and it will only reduce with prosecution. I've dealt with very similar situations over in Briarfield, where I worked before here. And it does require the reports and the evidence, and then we can deal with it.
Okay, I mean, one of the reports that we've had is because of the tightness of this area. Can you see that where I'm doing my cursor? Because of the way that the road is orientated here, that frequently we get HGVs mounting the pavements, and there's a picture which was taken from this property behind these trees here, which shows the truck literally, the other side of this hedge from their property. So, it's a case of what can we do? Certainly, we can ask the County Council to look at this, and hopefully they will do something. I'll take that down now and ask if there's any further comments from other members of the committee. Somebody was indicated there. Stephen, you want to come back in?
Yeah, it was just a quick one. I can't remember who it was last year. It might have been, is it Valerie, has brought a few of these side streets which come onto the main road into question. And road safety in Lancashire highways have been down and viewed at these and deemed them safe. Whereas some of the side streets where you're coming out to the main road, some of the residents have put higher fences up that we're aware of. And obviously further towards that bend, it becomes very precarious, and it is a little bit of take your life in your hands sometimes with the speed of the vehicles and the size. But that is out of police hands. So that's going to be a construction and use almost for the road, and that to go up to the county council to deal with that, I think.
Okay, I mean, I think one of the things that local people would say and have been saying for the last 40, 50 years is there ought to be a small roundabout at the junction of New Road, Victoria Road, Colne Road and Skipton Road, which would have the effect of making that junction itself safer, but also have the benefit of reducing the speeds on the traffic going into that chicane. So I don't know whether the committee would support that. Can I see any nods of assent? Yeah, there is nods of assent. So I think, Joanne, if we can incorporate that suggestion into the resolution and see whether we can get any traction with that. If we can move on to the next location that we've got on our agenda, and this is the A56 in Kelbrook, and that's a picture that Councillor Tom Whip took this afternoon. None of the vehicles that are shown there were acting inappropriately in any shape or form. It's merely to illustrate the section of road and also looking in the opposite direction, he says, if I can. Looking that way as well, where again there are concerns about speeds of traffic coming off the roundabout and then coming around that bad corner. And similarly, when you get into Suff, and we've only just had the wall repaired from a bad crash quite a long time ago now, but regular in a way. And the particular problem that people are seeing is that traffic speeds increased during lockdown, and they don't seem to have reverted back to reasonable speeds. It seems like a lot of people, were sort of freed from the foot brake and, sort of allowed to put their accelerator down when the roads were dead quiet, and they don't seem to have come away from that yet. So I'll take that away, and then I can see if anybody else is indicating. Would committee support that we make a similar request to the Traffic Liaison Committee for that to be an area of concern and consideration? And Stephen, I'm assuming you'd make the same comments as you have for the other location that we've just highlighted.
Yeah, I totally agree. I mean, if you need to apply for fixed speed cameras on the stretches, I think the police would support that.
Yeah, I think that would be something that we would welcome. I mean, we have asked for that at Skipton Road in Barnoldswick, and we would want to reiterate that request if we're asking for speed cameras. I can see Councillor Mills nodding vigorously and putting a thumb up. And the final location that we've actually got on... Yes, sorry, Mike.
I got my hand up a while. Sorry,
I didn't see that.
Yeah, sorry to interrupt.
Mike.
Just to say that stretch at Suff and the Bad Bend and the whole road all the way down. I mean, the police have had cameras on that on and off now for a long time. It is notable, mind you, that there is very little signage there whatsoever. I think there's one 30-mile-an-hour sign along the whole stretch. And it is a deceiving road. It's a wide road. Traffic do speed up there a lot, genuinely outside of this COVID period. So I wondered if we could include a look at the signage there on that, if we're referring it. It's always, you stick to 30 mile an hour along there, and there's usually people behind you that are getting rather irate, and they don't know why you're doing it because there's no signage as such, very little signage. I think there's only one, if I remember rightly. So anything we can do on that grounds would be helpful.
Thank you. Yeah, that's helpful. The final location that we have on the agenda is Abbey Road, Salterford, and we're talking about by Klondike. And I should have a picture, but I can't find it, I'm afraid. So I'm not going to spend time trying to look for it. But it's a case of the traffic coming over from Northholme down into Earby, driving at excessive speeds, and then around and through where the old railway was. And there are 20-mile-an-hour limits somewhere on there, but I'll bring Christine in because she knows this problem far better than us. Again, it's one we want to flag it up to the Traffic Liaison Committee, ask the County Council to take some action there. Christine, can I bring you in?
Yeah, I mean, they speed a lot up past Klondike. I mean, it's just like all day, but we're getting at the moment at night, it's usually after 11 o'clock. And I mean, I don't follow them, but they seem to be going round. I presume they're going up the Wiswick and through Barlick and then back round. If you're out there, you see them. There's 3 regular cars that are doing it. They come round 3 or 4 times, and it hasn't been nice weather, but when it was nice, they just let the window open. It's all you heard. Starts just after about 11 o'clock. It can be any day of the week. And they're usually speeding round. I mean, there's a lot of speeding in general anyway, and especially since lockdown for some reason. But this nightly thing, I was trying to catch a sheep one night, and it was rather quite dangerous because it was out on the road, and I kept having to flag them round. But one car came round twice. At least it did slow down when I flagged him down, but they just, I don't know. It's getting worse actually.
Okay, thank you, Christine.
Right. So.
Stephen, I mean, any comment to make on that beyond what you've already said?
Yeah, I mean, there's no magic wonders, and these issues are prevalent across the borough and more in certain areas. I appreciate it is a concern, and it can result in some serious incidents. It can only really be attacked from our point of view, from the police point of view, with visibility and then enforcement later. So, let's hope we can be more visible and stop these people in the tracks. It has been a few months of very little presence, I would say. And I've noticed the speed myself whilst I've been in my own car of vehicles travelling around. So, yeah, it is an issue. And, we will prosecute where we can.
Thank you. I think committee are minded to accept the recommendations in terms of lobbying the County Council and taking it up with the Traffic Liaison Committee. In the light of what Stephen's just said, could I further suggest that we ask if we request the constabulary to revive the speed sessions that were planned, and in terms of the speed gun that we actually purchased from Bonalswick Town Council some years ago, and it got recalibrated and it was going to be used, and we've not really seen much of that. So I think a request to the constabulary for that sort of activity to take place as soon as practically possible. Stephen.
Yeah, it's just a quick one on the speed gun. Most people seem to think, the police are out during the day getting workers coming and going and school pickups. These guns we have, they do work in the evening. And obviously, our road safety campaign, they can work in the evening, but it always comes down to risk assessments. And this is where we tend to fail. So even though we have the equipment and we have the impetus and the desire to do it, sometimes, unfortunately, the Health and Safety Brigade are what's holding us back. And, that is totally out of our control. I can't say anything further on that. The equipment we have works. It can work in the evening, but there is obviously a huge risk to using it at that time of night, which is why you don't see it as much as maybe we should do.
Okay, thank you very much for that. We've spent best part of an hour on those issues, and I'm grateful to Stephen spending his time with us. I don't know whether Joanne's got a book going on how long this meeting is going to go on. She's smiling now, so obviously they have in the office. Stephen, thank you very much for coming along. We really do appreciate seeing you. And you're very welcome, or Councillor, Sergeant Hitchin, or Inspector Bost, or Chief Inspector Andy Cartwright are very welcome to come to our future meetings. We won't bite your heads off, honestly. So thank you. We'll let you get about your business. We'll get on to planning items, which I'm sure Mr. Watson will be delighted that we are dealing with. So thank you again. Right, so we're going to go on to the planning applications, and the first application, which I'm just going to put a picture up, is for the building, the storage building at the caravan site at Salterfirth. So that's where we are talking about, and I think that's still on your screen. I'll take it down when Neil Watson wants to come in, but we do have an update which members of the committee will have, but I'll just have to ask Neil to refer to that. And the application itself is on the papers that came out with the committee agenda. So we're talking about this area here. Over to you, Neil.
Thank you, Chairman. Chairman, can I just share a plan? Oh, thank you very much. I'll just try and share a plan of what we're looking at here, if I can. Can everyone see that? Can people see my cursor?
Yes.
Chairman, we're talking about a building going up in this location here. It was, as approved, a smaller building in approximately the location there. I've got the plan of the previous location. If you can see, it's virtually the same location, but it's just slightly out. Chairman, this is what is proposed now. There's actually some improvements in terms of some of the materials on there, because we had block work on the other one. You've now got stone, wood, and a profile roof. That was the building that was approved at appeal. Chairman, I'm trying to. There we go. Chairman, the biggest issue I think for me here is that of the flood risk. We had some calculations given to us by the agent looking at the capacity of the flood storage attenuation pond that the inspector approved. The calculations they've given to us are that it would have capacity to have the increased flow rate. It's not that there is additional water coming into the area. It is that it will go into the attenuation pond at a quicker rate, because the area that will be attenuated is the same. It's just that there will be a hard surface. So, Chairman, based on the appeal and what the inspector said, and our objection to that at appeal, which was not agreed with by the inspector, Chairman, I think based on the information we have, my recommendation can only be that of an approval.
Okay. Neil, can I just ask and clarify, because the this building here didn't appear to be on the plan that you just put up, so that building stays as is, and there's a further storage building. Am I completely reading this wrong?
That's correct, Chairman. Yes, there's another. Yeah. So right. This building would remain. There's another building further over, Chairman.
Okay. Just while I've got this picture up, I seem to remember there was some conditions about no access to the caravan site or this storage building that's on the picture from the inadequate access track, and there was a request for them to put a passing place in. There's no passing place, and there's considerable movement in and out of this access here, with obviously with the gates open.
Chairman, I'd have to go back at that. My recollection is that there was always going to be an access to that building, but the building was required not to then to have access to the caravan park. So there was always had to be access to the building, but not to the caravan parks. But Chairman, don't quote me on that because I'd have to go back and look at it. I haven't, if I'm honest, looked at it as part of this application.
Okay. So the application is for, hang on a minute, I'll get it back up again. It says, the application is for just adjacent to this attenuation pond, isn't it? Oh, it's just off the picture.
Yes, Chairman, it is.
Yeah. Okay. Right. Invite any comments from councillors. Are we okay with approving this? Speak now, or forever hold your peace. Can I bring one of the Abbey Ward councillors in, Mike?
Yeah, thank you, Chairman. I was certainly confused at first. I thought they were going to pull down the original one. I'm just a bit worried. I mean, we started off with the original one was going to be designed with open slats and base of that, and the net result was they didn't do that. They put it up as a corrugated shed, bigger than what was there before. I know it's perhaps I get a feeling we're going to go down a route again with this one, in terms of what design it actually gets built as. But there doesn't seem to be anything we can do about it. It seems to be doubling up. I'm not certain why that space, the covered space, is needed to be doubled up. Do we know anything about what it's going to be used for, Neil? Through you, Chair.
Neil,
through your Chairman, it's just general activities associated with the caravan park. So there'll be machinery, storage of materials they need in there. Just a general purpose building associated with general activities there. Chairman, I haven't got a specific schedule of what will go in, but it's just they, and obviously they're growing, that they want that storage space.
Okay, and we failed to get the passing spaces, did we not? That we were trying to the shed that's there now.
That's correct, Chairman.
Yeah, so we wouldn't be able to attach them again to this one on the basis that it's going to be increased usage going up and down that road, that track.
Chairman, this application, Chairman, is under section 73. It's varying the conditions of the plans, Chairman. So what the law actually requires us to do is limit what we look at, not to principles, just to the individual merits, Chairman. This is really looking at a larger building, whether we would agree to vary that condition, not the wider planning permission in itself.
Okay, Mike, are you prepared to put something on the table?
How about we don't change the conditions for a larger building?
Neil?
Well, Chairman, my view on that would be we have to have some solid planning grounds to do that. I reread the inspector's report today, and he gave this little. Well, in fact, he didn't even mention it apart from in the description of development earlier on. So clearly, this was not a landscape or a visual amenity issue for him. So I think it is a larger building, but it's not a big building in itself. There are some better materials to be used, stone as opposed to block. Chairman, it will be, in my view, pretty. I think we may be seen as churlish in a planning sense here, because I don't really see there being a significant difference between the two.
I think that it's a mote in the eye rather than a beam in the eye. and I think there are other aspects of this development which very much a beam in the eye. Obviously, a planning inspector has accepted those. So,
okay.
Yeah, Mike.
What about last time we requested and wanted a turning circle, a turning area around the original building? Is there adequate space attached to this new to allow access of large vehicles?
Can I just interject? My understanding is that there is supposed to be no access from the inadequate access track to either the caravan site development, or the storage building, machinery storage building that existed prior to, which was built, as you said, larger than the original approval granted. So I'm not quite clear to what you're referring.
Well, let me get it clear in my mind then. Where do the vehicles come to use to carry goods to these two sheds? Do they come? The route is through the caravan park?
It is supposed to be,
right.
And indeed there's an inconsistency, because the planning inspectorate granted two things on appeal: one for a caravan site with a road layout as shown on the plan that Neil put up a little while ago, and then granted an appeal for the building that I pictured earlier on, which showed an access track going diagonally across the caravan site, which clearly it would go through the middle of caravans. But nevertheless, there are two appeal decisions in the applicant's favour, which are inconsistent with each other. And how you get out of that bind, I do not know. But my understanding is that all the access for the caravan site and these two storage buildings is through the caravan site itself. And I'll bring Neil back in, because I can see that he's had the opportunity to look back through plans and things like that.
Chairman, it's just trying to add, if it will be, some clarity to this. I think if I understand what Councillor Gothorpe's saying, the arrangements don't really change from this to the approved scheme. The building's slightly larger, but the access turning arrangements, etc., are the same as was approved by the planning inspectors. So that's why I think it will be difficult to really go behind that, if that helps you at all, Councillor.
Okay, Mike, are you prepared to put a resolution on the table? Mike has frozen.
Councillor
I'm going to bring Jane Mills in. Councillor Mills.
Thank you, Chairman. There was something raised about why indeed the need a bigger building. I'm looking through the documentation.
Yeah.
I don't know if
Jane, can I stop you there? We cannot speculate as to the need of the applicants. You know, we've got an application in front of us which we need to determine, and the speculation as to whether they need it or not is not something that we can take into consideration. They've applied for it. That's what's in front of us. We need to make a decision on what they have applied for.
Okay.
Sorry.
Okay.
Sorry to cut you off.
Okay.
Mike, are you back with us? Mike is still frozen. Colin, can I bring you in? I'm looking for a proposal from the AB Ward councillors. Mike, we can barely hear you. You're very broken up. I'm going to bring Colin in.
Try turning off your video, Mike.
I'm going to bring Colin in. Mike, if you turn your video off, your audio should be okay. Colin, can I bring you in? Are you frozen?
I'm here.
Okay.
I think Mike is as well.
Colin, if you can speak now, and then hopefully Mike will rejoin us.
I'm not too sure about this proposal. See, I don't know what we can reject it on this time. There's nothing we can really do, is there, really, on this? Nothing I can see we can go against.
Are you prepared to move that it's accepted?
With some reluctance, yes.
Okay, so that's moved. I'm not sure if we've got Mike back yet, but is there a seconder? Mike,
can you hear me, Chairman?
We can now. Yes, thank you, Mike. Colin has moved that this is approved.
Yeah.
You're breaking up again.
Can you hear me?
No, I'm afraid we can't, Mike. You're breaking up badly. Do you want to try and log out and come back in again?
Chairman, there is an alternative where on the invitation that he rings the telephone number. If the internet connection is bad, he can always dial in. And on the invitation, there was a number and a code.
I think I'd probably struggle to find the invitation now. Is there anybody else wants to speak on this? No. Is that somebody, David?
So I don't wish to speak on it, obviously, Chair, but I just wondered whether Councillor Mike Golfer could put his comments into the chat box.
Okay. Well, we seem, Mike, we've got your picture back. I'm afraid this isn't a good advert for online meetings, but it's the first time we've had this problem to any significant degree. And Mike would say just needs better broadband up Birchall Lane.
Chairman, I have got the telephone number and the ID code if you want me to give it to you in case Mike can hear it. It's up to you.
Yeah, we don't want all and sundry dialing in though, Joanne, I'm afraid. Mike, can you turn your video off and we'll try and hear you? Kill your video. No.
Chairman,
Mike.
if he wants to ring our office, Lynn will answer the telephone. So if he rings my number.
So 661
654.
Okay. Right. Is there anybody else wants to speak to this? I can't see anybody indicating. We're hanging on the telephone now. It's a bit like an auction, isn't it? Where, you know, we've got bidders in the room and we've got bidders on the phone. And we've got a proposal that this should be agreed from Councillor Carter. Somebody's suggesting. Oh, Mike, are you back with us?
Well, can you hear me?
Yes.
I've logged back in, so hopefully that should improve. So
okay, so Councillor Carter has moved approval.
Seconded.
Thank you very much. Is everybody in favour of that? Is there anybody disagreeing? If you disagree, if you shake your head vigorously, if you're an icon, I can't see your head moving. Speak now. Anybody in disagreement? If not, that proposal is carried. Thank you. Wow. Right, we're going to get a bit of a move on now. We're going next, he says, desperately looking for his agenda, which has probably fallen on the floor or something. We've got a report on planning appeals, and I understand from monitoring the PIN's website that there has been a site visit to this field in Salterfirth, where Seddon Homes have applied for an extension, phase 2 of the development at Beckside in Salterfirth. And those nasty developers, this was tongue-in-cheek, want to evict those sheep grazing in that lovely pastoral landscape. I think we can expect that there will be a decision on that shortly, given that the site visit has been dated and I think has taken place. Neil, anything else on the planning appeals?
No, Chairman, they've gone into a bit of a black hole at the moment, but as you say, if the site visit's been done, then that normally says that we would expect a decision reasonably shortly.
Thank you. Anything else on appeals? Can we note that? Thank you. Enforcement action, the former Gospel Mission Hall on Hollins Road. I understand there was some work taking place to tidy up that area yesterday or the day before. What day were we on? Tuesday. Yesterday. We've got the matter is to be taken back to court as the notice has not been complied with. Is that still the case, and are we likely to have a court date anytime soon?
Chairman, you've probably seen that the government have introduced some more changes to the court system, adding delays in. Chairman, we've got something in the order of still 60 cases. We're being asked not to list any more cases. So when we may or may not get to court on any matter, it really is difficult to say at the moment, Chairman. Okay, thank you very much. Can we note that then? Anybody want to raise any further questions? I'm not seeing anybody's hands up. Okay, we're going to move on then to financial matters, the capital programme. This is only on the agenda just to report the availability of funds. Is there anything that anybody wants to raise? Any proposals that people want to put? No. Can we note that then and move on to item 8? And Councillor Tom Whip and I, item 8 is reopening of Bonalswick and Earby town centres. Councillor Tom Whip and I have done quite a bit of work on this. We have got proposals worked up in conjunction with Bonalswick Town Council. There is a slight difficulty, Neil and David, if you could help us with, please, and that is that the funds are in principle held by Pendle Borough Council. The expectation is that the work will be organised by the respective town councils, and in respect of Earby Town Council, given the minimal interaction that there's been, I think there's going to have to be some sort of arrangement in place for the expenditure to be shared, but for one town council perhaps to lead on that. But the first stumbling block is the difficulty of ordering work or commissioning services when the town councils don't have the budget to do so, and there's some reticence about that. So we need to have some arrangements made to pass over the budget so that the work can be ordered, and we can get on with this just as soon as possible. So could we note that in the minutes, please, Joanne, and ask our officers? And I highlighted Neil because some of this it's through economic development, which is his bag. Yeah. Correct, Chairman. I'll speak to the Chief Exec, etc. tomorrow and see what we can put in place.
Oh my God! Don't talk to Dean. He's got enough on his plate. Yeah, just sort it out. We don't need to bother him with it. As Vince is still with us, get Vince to write a cheque or two. That'll sort it.
It's just I haven't got the delegated authority, so I'll ask Dean. I'm sure he will agree.
Well, get him to give the authority before he goes off to Bamborough, because we don't want to hang about any further. Is there anything more on item 8, the reopening of the town centres? We're going to put loads of pictures up for you, but you'll probably shout at me if we start doing that at this time of night. Yeah, nobody's indicating, so we'll move on then. Item 9 is removal of payphones, and we do have one picture from Barnoldswick, but the item is that BT have identified that 2 payphones are not being used enough, and are proposing to remove them under the 90-day consultation period, and the average calls per month for one on Victoria Road at Earby is 5, and the average calls per month on the one on Station Road at Barnoldswick is 22. Now, I mean, 22 in this day and age sounds to be quite a lot to me. So, I mean, I'm just wondering whether we ought to be making a case for that one to remain, and just trying to find the picture while I speak. Can we talk about the one in Earby, Mike?
Thank you, Chairman. Yeah, and this is dead in the centre of Earby. I'm sure you're aware of that. So it is the last one standing, I think. But at 5 a month, it's very difficult to sustain that, I would have thought. I'm just conscious that it is, in the centre of the high street, nearly adjacent to the bus station, and normally, if it had been a reasonable call, I would have said let's keep it. It's there as an emergency. But with 5 a month, it's very difficult to justify it, to be honest. And of course, it is a modern one, so it's not really worth buying for £1. No. I've put a picture up of the one on Station Road in Barnoldswick. I'm inviting committee members to comment on that. I mean, it's not an attractive phone box. It does suffer vandalism from time to time. I was quite surprised when I read 22, which might not seem a lot, but on the other hand, it does indicate that it is used, and in emergency people might wish to use it. So comments, please. And I've got Councillor Tom Whip and then Councillor Mills.
Thank you, Chair. I mean, at 22 calls a month, that's 264 calls a year. I'd consider that quite frequent myself. I mean, yes, it's not an attractive phone box, but with the adoption for £1, does that phone line remain, or is it just the box?
You have to get the box.
Lovely, right? Yeah, I mean, it's not worth £1, is it? But I mean, if we can get them to keep the payphone going, 22 calls a month, that seems plenty to me.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, Councillor Mills.
Yeah.
Neil, sorry, just Jane, before you just come in, Neil, I don't think there's anything else on the agenda that requires your presence. If you want to, or problem sites, perhaps, I don't know, outstanding enforcement. Yeah, sorry. Yeah,
okay.
There is something on the end of the agenda. I apologise. Jane.
Thank you, Chairman. I kind of concur with Tom, really. It's quite a few calls going in there per month. It is an unattractive thing. and this is probably going to be a blatant no, but is there anything we can do about getting hold of one of these red ones and putting that there? And, you know, we could make a really good feature of it, you know, do something really brilliant with it, but it's probably going to be a no.
Well, there's no harm in asking. Tom, you want to come back in?
I was going to ask that exact question, Chairman.
Okay.
I mean, I'd be happy if we could even allocate from area committee, I dare say. But yeah, I mean, an attractive red phone box, centre of the town, I think it'd be a great asset.
Okay, so I think we've got a proposal that we don't object to the removal of the one on Victoria Road at Earby, but we do object to the removal of the one on Station Road, Bonolswick, and we have a further resolution. Now, the news... Ken, can you just turn your mic off for a moment? I'll bring you in a moment. So, a three-part resolution: Earby, no objection; Bonolswick, object, and with a rider that we'd like to see the existing box replaced with one of an attractive red one, which we did lose some very recently. Now then, I've got Mike, if he's wanted to come back in, and then Ken. And Jane, you're indicating again, so unless that's a legacy hand, we'll bring you back in. Mike?
Yeah, I don't know whether it's a flippant, but if you don't get no joy with the telecom, Calbrook has one that'd sell you, but it would cost you more than £1.
Thank you. Ken?
Thank you, Chairman. I know it kind of sounds grand, but the Bonolswick one, excuse me, the Bonolswick one is adjacent to our transport hub, and therefore, if you like, it's a good emergency standby to visitors coming into the town via bus, which are right behind it. If they know anybody in town and they do have a problem, it is a good emergency standby.
Yeah, I agreed. Jane, bring you back in.
Yeah,
You're breaking up, Ken. Jane.
And another side thought to that with the red one, we've seen some black ones around somewhere. I mean, I don't know.
I'm going to stand up. Hang on a sec. Right, carry on.
No, I don't know. I mean, the ones that we've seen do look smart being in black, but it's just, I'm just thinking about another option, that's all. I don't know what the people think.
Right, can we just stick to asking for a red one? You know, don't complicate matters. Right, can we agree on that? Is anybody disagreeing? Is any of those icons down at the bottom of the screen unhappy? That's Marjorie. Marjorie, are you content with that decision? Can you speak, please? Marjorie?
I'm quite happy with that, yes.
Lovely, thank you very much. That's great, is that? Thank you very much. Right, let us move on in agreement on the phone boxes to item 10. And these are a few issues to discuss. So the first one, it was requested by Councillor Jane Mills, and it's parking issues in the Richmond Road and Poets Corner area of Bonolswick. So Jane, do you want to explain what the issue is, please, and what action you would like to see taken?
Okay, thank you, Chairman. Well, basically, just to give you a bit of history, the area that we're in is quite a well-known area of Bonolswick. There's lots of terrace houses around and narrowish streets with on-street parking. And the on-street parking is becoming more and more intense, really. As people have bigger families, and it's going to be like this in a lot of places. But in this particular area, it's quite tight to get in and out of some of these streets. You know, it's been raised with me recently with various people that getting up and down these streets with even with the on-street parking, it is a very tight squeeze, and I do experience it myself on a daily basis. I've witnessed ambulances and fire engines trying to get up and not being able to at times, and had to go down different areas to get to where they need to go. I do know David will have a great knowledge of this, because this has been discussed before previously on, I would imagine, a few occasions. There has been things done to try and alleviate the problem with parking spaces made and a car park just off Harper Street that was put down there to try and relieve some of that down the bottom end. But what I'm hearing is the people are parking down that way are heading up onto further up onto Richmond Road, and higher still onto Milton Grove, and it's having a knock-on effect with, you know, people are not going to be able to park. There's very few have off-street parking, and it's becoming more and more of an issue. And I just think we should be having a real look at this, how we go about it, whether we get LCC involved, if there's anything they can do. Just asking for anything that, if anybody's got any experience, that, you know, we can take this forward and try and have some resolution to it.
Thank you very much, Jane. I mean, without boring people to death with the full-blown history, when Pendle Council had the Highways Agency and were able to do work on behalf of the County Council, we had considerable liberty to do things, and the area committees, all of them, supplemented what funding was available from the County Council. In Richmond Road, we hardened some of the verges and created more parking spaces. Back in the day then, we held residents' meetings to discuss the issues, and residents were not agreed on taking up all the verges to create further parking. So, I mean, it was limited to where people were in agreement. One of the options that we could ask is if the County Council would consider extending that work. But my suggestion would be that we ask for the general issue of the parking problems in that area to be drawn to the attention of the County Council, that this is discussed by the Traffic Liaison Committee, and that we ask them what solutions they can come up with, and you know, if there are any options, you know, how they could then be implemented. That may or may not include hardening further verges and perhaps creating some more space. But, you know, apart from making up the unmade streets so that, you know, you created roadways rather than the tracks that there are at the moment, and the obviously the gardened areas. You know, I don't think there's anything radical that can be done. If we did get onto that sort of discussion, Councillor Mills, you would need to declare a personal prejudicial interest, because there would be a financial implication. So that would be my suggestion. Send it to Traffic Liaison Committee, ask them to consider it, come up with some options, and those options to include an extension of the verge hardening that has been carried out previously. Is there anybody else wants to come in? Any of the other ward councillors? Has Marjorie, anything to add? Do you want to second what Jane has suggested? I can see you trying to unmute.
I found it, Chairman. Yes, I'll second what Jane's suggesting.
Thank you very much. Okay. Is there anybody disagrees with that? No, nobody disagrees. So I'll take that as agreed and the resolution of the committee. The next item on here is the junior football pitch at Bailey Street, Earby, and there was a petition circulating. Sorry, I'll just kill this. Sorry, I'm in a meeting. There was a petition circulating online from Barlett Barons regarding the use of the junior pitch and the fact that they understood that Pendle Council were going to take it out of maintenance. Now, I'm sure that David Walker has chapter and verse on this, so I'll just invite David if he wants to make any comment. My understanding is that there is no change proposed to the maintenance regime, and part of the issue is that the pitch wasn't being booked by the Barons, and as far as Pendle Council could see on paper, there wasn't the usage that there actually was. But I'm perhaps oversimplifying with that. So, David, do you want to contribute anything here?
Yes, certainly, Chair. I think your oversimplified explanation really was basically that. Barnoldswick Barons were using the pitch far more frequently than we had knowledge of, and therefore we felt that the pitch wasn't sustainable. But obviously, following the consideration of being taken out of our maintenance programme and keeping it to the standard of a football pitch, have been advised differently and have taken a different mindset now. So, as far as I'm aware now, speaking with colleagues in environmental services, the pitch is being maintained for the forthcoming season anyway, for their 5 and 7-a-side team games. And Earby Town Council own the facility, pay for the maintenance, and that will continue.
Okay, thank you very much. That's very helpful. Mike?
Yes, thank you, Chairman. Yeah, I'll add a bit more meat on the bone, if I may, on this one. I'll go back to the 20th of July, when the Barnoldswick Broncos, I've got them down as, received an email clearly telling them that they would not be able to use the Springfield site at all in the coming 2021 season. And not only that, it wouldn't be maintained from that point on. Now, I understand what David said about not having the information, but that email was sent to them. I've got copies of the audit trail right the way through. And also there was no consultation with anybody in terms of the town council that actually is responsible for that pitch and the rec. So when I found out, I dropped a note to both Kieran Roberts and Dean Langton, just explaining the issues concerning this. There's a large percentage of the kids that play in the 9 teams that they've got from obviously the Earby area, and 1 or 2 from Barnoldswick as well. But they also had an agreement and worked closely with the school, where they had training equipment in storage, and also used the school facilities at the same time, the 5-a-side pitch there. So I just dropped a note saying, look, is this the right time to be making it more difficult for kids to play sport, if there is any right time to do that? At the moment, they were offered 2 alternate sites. So this is how complex it went on. One was the Bullholm, and another one was in Barnoldswick. So yeah, I think the petition might have been unfortunate, because we got on the case straight away, And also, once that explanation was put into place, you came back with the response to them saying, yes, it's okay for 2021. We will maintain the pitch and you can have your fixtures there. Because it would have been very difficult to split the teams up into two different locations.
Yeah.
Suffice to say, we've gone a step further with this. We've had initial discussions, and I've sort of got them together with Earby Town Council, and hopefully they'll be looking at ways of developing the Springfield pitch for the future, or the area, for them to use in a more viable way. So that's a good result all around. I think if they'd have asked people before they sent the email and communicated, and they would have got the knowledge that David actually has told us about. It's unfortunate, but there we are.
Yeah, I'm not aware that the petition has actually surfaced, and I did comment on some of the posts that I saw circulate on social media when I found out, that a hare was running, which at the beginning had some legs, but by the time that the petition was circulating, that had been well and truly become a drugged hare rather than a running hare. So I think it's a position of, if the petition comes in, that the response is, it has been considered, the issue has been considered, and that there is no change proposed by Pendle Council to the management of the pitch in the short term, and that the longer term management may be under consideration in terms of a betterment rather than a worsening of the situation. So are we content as a committee to note that, and we can just put that one to bed? We're not going to bring it back to committee unless there is any need in the future. Is that agreed?
Agreed, Chairman.
Lovely, thank you very much. The next one is light pollution in West Craven area, and this is Councillor Tom Whip. So over to you.
Thank you, Chair. I'll put a couple of pictures up on screen and just explain what they are. So this first one there, can you guys see it?
Yep.
Yep. This is the view of Bonolswick from Letcliffe Park. And most of the lights in the town now are LED. And LEDs are very good because the light is highly directional. Most of the street lighting now is directly pointed to the road. You don't get the same sort of dissipation into the atmosphere. Your nighttime photographers can manage better than they could, say, 5 years ago. However, there is some particular sites in Barnoldswick that produce a lot of light pollution at a level higher than anywhere else. And one of those circled in blue here is the Rolls-Royce car park. I mean, this is just from a phone camera, so you can't really tell the difference, but the difference in light there is almost blinding at night time, how much it takes up the skyline. I'll move over now to I can't do that.
I'm glad it's not just me.
There we go. This is a professional photograph took by Northern Images of the comet recently, and you can see in the foreground there just how bright the Rolls-Royce car park is. It's too much. It ruins the nighttime skyscape for amateur photographers and urban photographers as well. And I just think we should do something to rectify that.
Thank you very much. Just leave that one up for a moment there, please, Tom.
Yep.
Because if you look to the right of that picture, you can see there, now I suspect that is another Rolls-Royce facility, either the sports centre or perhaps the leisure centre. I'm not right sure, but it's in that sort of vicinity. So, we don't want to be knocking Rolls-Royce. Well, I mean, we perhaps do want to knock Rolls-Royce, and we'll be discussing that in a moment or two. But we don't want to precipitate even worse action from Rolls-Royce in terms of the operation of the facilities in Bonalswick. But the brightness of those lights and the fact that they're shining up into the sky rather than lighting the car park and the ground, which is what they want for safety reasons. It really is OTT. So, what proposal are you putting? That we ask the company to adjust its lights to make them less intrusive and create less light pollution?
Yeah, that's the first part of my resolution. The second part as well is this photo was taken during lockdown when all the workers were furloughed.
No. Hang on a minute. No, the military people were not furloughed.
Okay, the majority of.
Yeah.
But this car park was majoritively empty at that time.
Can you just give me the screen?
Yeah. So it's also the matter that these lights are being on, the lighting an empty car park, and it's not providing. It's detracting more than it's providing security.
Okay. So the resolution is that we contact the company, requesting them to adjust the lights so that they don't create as much light pollution, but still providing adequate illumination for their activities, security and safety of their staff. Is that correct?
Yes, and then to also not have them on when they don't need to be.
Okay.
And the third part of my resolution would be to seek other opportunities to reduce light pollution around the town and the entirety of West Craven as well.
Okay. Can I ask committee members if that resolution has support? Anybody want to add anything to that? Anybody disagree with the proposition? Jane, can I bring you in?
Sorry, I was just going to support Tom in his resolution there.
Thank you. So it's moved and seconded. I'm going to say all those in favour, please show in the time-honoured fashion, which we could do. I can see one or two people actually doing it. Nobody's dissenting, so I will take that as carried. We're going to go on now to the condition of the frontage at the former post office buildings, and we do have another picture to put up, so I will do that now. And this has arisen because I think it was last week we had an elderly, much loved lady who fell on this uneven frontage in front of the former post office at the junction of Station Road with Fernley Avenue, and the pavement itself is adjacent to these railings, and it comes round here. There is actually a CCTV pole in the middle of the pavement, but that's probably the rear edge of the pavement. This area here and these concrete flags here are all frontage, so in the ownership of the post office, former post office buildings here, and you can see how uneven they are. And unfortunately, the lady that fell in her 80s apparently suffered a broken hip, and given the nature of this, so I think what we're asking for is a resolution from the committee requesting that the people responsible for this area carry out some resurfacing work, clearly, since 1958, the area has been open for people to pass and repass without, sort of any conditions on them. So it's become highway, but that doesn't necessarily mean that the county council will look after it. So it might get a bit complicated, but I think we need to raise it formally from the area committee to the county council, and then also contact the owners of the post office buildings to ask if we can get something sorted out to actually improve this area and make it less of a trip hazard than it already is. Can I ask if there's any further speakers on this? Mike, you're indicating.
Thank you, Chairman. Just to say, I would support, if you put in that forward as a money, I would second it. Let's get on with it. Let's find out who's going to do it and get it done.
Okay, thank you very much. Anybody else want to speak? Anybody disagreeing with that? If not, we're going to move on, and we've got a major item in terms of redundancies at local companies. I appreciate that this is under discussion at higher levels than the area committee, but nevertheless, in the last few weeks, we have seen either announced or already happening. We have seen in the order of 1,000 redundancies for West Craven alone, without looking beyond West Craven. And the redundancies that there are on the cards are such that, these are very well paid, skilled jobs, which when they go down the road or when they go to Singapore, they won't be coming back, and we will lose some of the skills, some of the capabilities to actually do the sort of things that we have been very proud to do in West Craven, which is make things. And the site at Gilbrow is earmarked for closure. We already have other people at Spring Mill at Earby. They're not on site now. What workers survive for the holiday lettings company will be working from home, and the main centre will be in Manchester. So that's another loss to the area. Westerns, where again they're affected by the downturn in civil aviation. And the list goes on. Synergis, what was Johnson & Johnson over in Gargrave, where a lot of people employed over there, they're letting people go. And then there are far more people who are losing their jobs left, right and centre. And that is accelerating with furlough coming to an end, and more people finding themselves unemployed. I liken this to being worse than the Great Depression, and compounded on top of the problems, the health problems of COVID-19. We are living in terrible times. So we've got it on the agenda for the area committee. I think we want, first of all, to flag it up to the Policy Resources Committee to ask P&R to consider what can be done. And then, insofar as this committee is concerned, and looking solely at West Craven, that we ask for a report on the implications of these redundancies for the local economy, and that we look at what opportunities are available to us, firstly to support individuals becoming redundant, secondly to support businesses which are threatened with by the downturn, and how we can support them, and then thirdly looking at the opportunities that there are for us to create new jobs in the future. And just to finish, to reflect back on why Rolls-Royce came to Banalswick, or Rover came to Banalswick during the Second World War, and that was because cotton industry had crashed. This area was full of empty cotton mills, and the engineering companies came in to occupy those empty mills. We're not quite at the position yet. There is still the prospect of the rump of Rolls-Royce continuing, but we get into that stage where the whole of the basis of the local economy will have the bottom knocked out of it, and that's got implications for every other aspect of our lives as well. And I think that that's something that we need to take very seriously. I wasn't intended to have a full debate tonight, but I think other people will want to chip in. And Ken Hartley, you were wanting to come in on this as well. Are you there, Ken, or have you left us? Ken?
Sorry, I'm still here. I totally support what already said. I think in terms of a report, I think we also need to have a look at some of the potential problems associated with Gilbrau in the planning area. Gilbrau for 60 odd years has been the location for an awful lot of nasty chemicals. Deliberately, since it's remote from the town itself, it is an area that Rolls-Royce has been encouraged to use some of its more unfriendly processes, for want of a better phrase. And that landed in my mind, looking at the experience that we've had with cotton mills, which are relatively mild from a chemical point of view. Compared to that site, it strikes me that site is a very heavily polluted site in one form or another. I can't believe that over 60 years we haven't had chemical spills down there, which prohibits return being pasture land and makes it very, very difficult to reuse it as industrial land as well. And certainly rules it out as far as housing is concerned, unless there's a major clean-up operation. But I think that we ought to have some indication of what planning difficulties the abandonment of the Gilbrau site poses for the area as well.
Sorry, thank you, Ken. That's just put into my mind the fact that in Banalswick, if they're relocating the chemical processes so to continue that manufacturing, if they're relocating that to Bankfield, we now have considerable housing development downwind of Bankfield, and perhaps that's another consideration that we need to be looking at as well. And perhaps that might be something that future planning applications would need to consider. I've got Mike indicating wanting to come in. Mike?
Thank you, Chairman. Yeah, I was listening to Ken there, but really I wanted to come in and just say, yeah, 100% support. I just think we need to get on with this. I mean, I don't think there's a debate needed at all. We just need to get on. Look at what all the points you've raised are very valid. We need the report. We need to understand what we can do and can't do. Ken's point about contamination, well, I'd be looking for Rolls-Royce to pay for that, but that's another argument.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think we just need to get on with it, Chair.
Thank you. Is there anybody else wants to speak?
And that is the reduction in workforce from Rolls-Royce on Aldeswick. Also raises a question which currently is the kind of elephant in the room that nobody's yet talked about. and that is the potential future of the Rolls-Royce welfare facility
Yeah, okay.
with extensive grounds, which is an integral part of the local patrol activity associated with the around that facility and in that region in general.
Okay, I don't think we want to put. I don't think we want to put thoughts in people's minds, so perhaps we should just leave it at that.
I'm quite happy to leave it at that.
Yeah.
Potential problems as well.
Yeah, you're breaking up horribly, Ken. We'll include that in the resolution, in some sort of low key way, without putting all the cards on the table. Jane.
Thank you, Chairman. I don't know if this has really been covered. Ken's talking about the clean-up on the site and everything like that. Just with Rolls-Royce moving out of there and possibly, going over to Bankfield, it's a massive, massive buildings and area. It's the maintaining and how it's going to look, if nothing moves in there. You're coming up as an approach into Ban Alswick and you've got that, and if it is not maintained, it's going to be pretty terrible, really.
Okay.
It's just something else, to think about, really.
Thank you. Micah, you wanted to come back in? Mute. Unmute.
Ken's quite right. I mean, Rolls-Royce have already said that one of their prime requirements, irrespective of what they're going to do with the two sites there, or what they're going to do with what they're sending to Singapore, a total complex that they were given by the Singapore government, by the way. They're going to strip assets out. They're going to try and recover some of their losses by billions of pounds worth of assets being sold off. So I think we all know there is an asset between the sites there. There is the leisure centre and the fields and everything else. So we really need to be aware of that. But Rolls-Royce, as part of their recovery plan, is to get rid of assets.
Well, I think I'd repeat something that Ken said with a very garbled line, is that the best part of the Rolls sports fields is part of our flood defences, and formally incorporated into a flood alleviation scheme. Yeah. So I don't care what Neil Watson says or what the planning inspectorate says. We've got pictures with water up to my chest in that, well, not quite up to my chest, in that area. And if they build on there, then, it's time for us all to be getting on the ark, because there is no hope for us whatsoever. Can we move on and agree those resolutions? Is there anybody else wants to speak? No. So the next item is to exclude the press and the public, because the information in the next items would be disclosure of exempt information, which is likely to reveal the identity of an individual, and it's about enforcement matters and the like. Now, ordinarily, I'd winnow out the ones that didn't actually reveal individuals, but it's gone 9 o'clock now, and I think we need to move on. So I would move the exclusion of press and public and ask that the live stream is taken down. Can I thank everybody that's watched live or may watch this in the future, and we will conclude the meeting in private. Thank you.